Hey, I'm Don Amaro, and this is Through the Fire, a podcast about overcoming adversity, reframing misfortune, and celebrating courage. On this show, you're going to meet some really incredible people who have been through some heavy stuff, but they've come through the other side. And the hope is that you're encouraged and inspired by the words that you hear. Hey, Jessica, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Don?
I am doing very well. I am very busy, busier that I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm taking on too many things, it seems, but I'm happy and I'm healthy and I won't complain. Hi, Jessica Mitchell. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Don Amaro?
I'm doing all right. You have one of those names too. I think that kind of is people have to say two names. Is that the way? Because people often just call me Don Amaro. They don't just call me Don. It's always the both together.
It's funny that you say that. I feel like everybody does do that. I don't know why. Yeah.
Well, Jessica Mitchell, here's the thing. So I don't know if you know this. So I've been a big fan of your music for probably about 5-ish years now. A friend of mine kind of turned me onto your stuff, and I was at my manager's house, Lori Brown, listening to your album one night, being beautifully ruined by some of the songs.
Beautifully ruined.
Yeah.
That sounds like my life. Just kidding.
But I mean, you write from this place that's really like emotional and you feel it. Like, I mean, you've got one of those voices that, for me, I feel the soul. And so I should know the track, but I remember I was listening, and I now just bear with me when I say this. I remember saying out loud to myself, "I hate that song." Now hold on. I didn't mean that I hated it. What was happening was it brought up all these emotions in me that I was like, oh, it's uncovering this feeling for me that, and it was like I love the song so much that it's making me feel these things, and so I actually wrote a song after listening to your album one night called "I Hate That Song." But
really,
it sounds insulting, I know, but you have to hear the song. So
I would love to hear it.
The song is all about loving the song so much, but what it is it's about a relationship that's no longer in existence. So it's that song always brings you back to that relationship, and for whatever reason, they're no longer together. Like either the person left or they died, and sort of like there's a question mark there for open to interpretation for the listener. But your music has always inspired me in so many ways, and it's just it now as I'm saying it to you, I feel like it's a weird way for me to say that I wrote a song based on your music called "I Hate That Song."
No, I don't. I take that as a compliment, like for sure. I think in many ways, and I think I'm sure we'll get into it, but in the last few years, there's been a lot of self-reflection in terms of content of songs and places that you go and places that you take others to when you put that out into the world. And oddly enough, to inspire those sorts of things, I think it sort of means I'm doing my job a little bit, because those are in terms of opening things up to interpretation. I've tried really hard to keep things as sort of neutral as possible. And while still being incredibly personal, it's always been a very personal journey for me, songwriting. So I don't look at that as an insult. I look at that as a huge compliment because it means that I did what I was intending to do by making people feel things. I would love to. I'm gonna go listen to it. It's gonna freak me out a little bit. I'll be like, oh, this is about me. This is great.
Yeah. Two other things that I feel like I need to mention to you. One, you've got the kind of music that you ever listen to an album where you kind of only listen to 2 or 3 cuts because you're like, those are my favorite songs and I don't listen to the rest? Yours is the kind of music that I want to listen to the whole thing. And there's a few artists in my life that I listen to that I'm like, they can't release a bad song. And you're one of them. Like every song that you've ever put out I've ever listened to, I'm like, it's always amazing and it's always getting better somehow. And the other thing is I was there when you played your show in London last year during the CCMAs, and I was
you were?
I was there, yep. And I was blown away by how well your songs translate to live. Because even in the production side of it, you've got other elements, but it was just you and your guitar. And honestly, I didn't miss a thing. It was wonderful.
Those are scary shows, man. Especially the last couple of years, things being so isolated and so idle, I guess. Idle is a
Yep.
really good word. Getting onto a stage again is intimidating. It was really intimidating, especially, mentioning the whole "it's just you and your guitar" thing. I mean, that I think is even more terrifying is like getting onto a big stage and, in a big, empty sort of cavernous room where you feel like you're the only person in the room, even though there's people in there. Because you sort of have to feel that way. Like you sort of have to just pretend like you're sitting alone, just playing your music. Because the anxiety level is like here for those things now. And since then, I played a couple of shows, and it felt better, I think it's going to feel better the more that we do it. And I say we because I know it's everyone. It's not just me. Everybody's kind of getting back into the swing of things now. So it'll get better the more that time passes, and it's like practice. It's like riding a bike. You just have to do it, a few more times.
Well, the for me, I think the one thing I often feel is like totally, because I've been on this tour the last little while, and I'm the opening guy, so I'm opening the show, just me and my guitar, and I often feel like the word that comes to mind is so exposed and vulnerable, right? Like just being like,
oh yeah,
there you can't hide if it's just you and your guitar. There's no hiding, yeah,
yeah.
So
nude.
I think
you're in the nude.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's the scariest. It can be the scariest thing, and the thing is that's been my life for like
Right.
7-8 years.
Right.
It's all I've ever really known. When I play with a band, actually, I have more of a anxious moment of like, oh my God, I have other people and they have to rely on me and I have to rely on them. It's like, at least you
Right.
have the freedom to expose yourself in the way that you want to, like,
Right.
that sounds bad, but it's kind of true. Like it's,
yeah. Right. It's not dictated by an audience. It's sort of all together. You can gel together. I wanted to ask you, just because I don't know enough about it, but where did music start for you? Like, where did that journey begin?
From a young age, like everybody, sitting in rooms, writing poetry and, really absorbing the musical culture that was happening in the 90s. I'm old.
I was there. I'm there with you. Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
90s was
it's
my
weird. What
yeah.
happened? What happened to us? But yeah, like the culture of the 90s and the whole singer-songwriter era of, chick power and the Sheryl Crows and the Jewels and all that stuff. And, I got very, very sort of into that, along with, the harder stuff, the Tools and the Nine Inch Nails and, all that kind of thing. But, my dad taught me a couple chords on the guitar, which was really cool of him. And I just sort of took it from there. And, in my room playing music by myself and writing poetry. And I had a very rough teenage sort of, I don't even want to say upbringing, because I brought myself up, I think, to no fault of my parents whatsoever. It was just wild and free, and making really bad mistakes and, mental illness and all this stuff. So, and I think it made it for the better, to be honest, in the long run. I think I'm glad that I experienced a lot of the things that I did when I was a kid, because I think it did grow my music to a place that I was really excited about, in my early 20s, and when I moved to Toronto, and things just went from there. And I think between bartending and serving and doing little odd jobs and playing little open mics and all that stuff, when I moved here, and then down the line, professionally, it just kind of fell into place, thankfully. Yeah.
And so you mentioned your folks, your dad taught you some. Was your mom musical as well?
She was. She tried to be. She loved music. She loved it. I was very lucky to be raised by two parents who absolutely loved music. and not shitty music. Like
Right.
they loved good music. So I got to listen to all these really incredible singer-songwriters and bands and things growing up that
Do you have some names that come to mind?
yeah, like I mean Peter Gabriel and Joni Mitchell and Neil Young and the Stones. My mom was a Stones girl, not a Beatles girl, so I wasn't raised on the Beatles.
Right. Rolling Stones were raised on the Beatles.
Yeah. I was raised on the Stones. The Eagles, like the list could go on. Fleetwood Mac, I was just very lucky, very, very fortunate to be exposed to that music.
Right. Did I get that wrong? Maybe the Stones were pre-Beatles and the Beatles were inspired by the Stones. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I got that wrong.
Listen,
I got to Google this later.
There's probably musicologists somewhere that are sitting in a room like arguing about that.
Maybe.
I'm sure the early years of music, I think in general, like people could argue for days upon days about who's this and who did what and who's responsible for influencing that person. And that's the beauty of music. It's the beauty of how much music exists in the world, which is crazy to me even to this day. Like just thinking about the fact that like something was released in 1932, like that's just like that was 100 years ago almost, So yeah, music's great in that sense.
Right. It's a unifying thing, but also very polarizing at the same time, which is kind of interesting.
Everlasting.
Yeah, everlasting. I like that.
Yeah.
So I heard that we're coming up on 10 years since your mom's passing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
That's which, again, to me feels like a real privilege to be able to have a conversation with you and, the 10-year anniversary of this. And has your mom been kind of in your corner throughout all this? I guess I'm wondering when that came in. Like if your mom passed 10 years ago, were you already in this as a full-time career?
Oddly enough, and I don't know if I've really told, I've told bits and pieces of the story, but at the end of her journey, I like to call it, she had a very long 10 years of having cancer on and off, which is even crazier to think that it was like 10 years of that. And now it's been 10 years of grief. So like two very different things. But sort of the same at the same time. She was really sick, for a while, for many months. She was in the hospital. And when she passed, it was sort of I don't want to say an eye-opener because I don't know if that's fair, but it was a bit of a release, having her go. Only because there were a lot of things that were holding me back for a while, not just her, but just in general. It was my sort of foot in the door to a whole other world of things that I couldn't do. I worked a lot and it was a good chance for me to step back and to sort of evaluate, okay, what's the next step in my life? Is it just or am I gonna keep working in a bar or am I gonna try and do something, And so very, very fortunately, Slate came into the picture very quickly after that. And
Jim Campbell?
Jim, Gary, Derek, all of them, like the whole me getting involved with them it was really good timing because it allowed me to throw myself into another road, throw me down another road. Like, here you go, get in the car, go, get on a plane, go, and put myself into music 100%. And when that happened, should I have been grieving? Probably. Should I have sought some counseling or something? Probably. But there's a lot of should I's and could I haves and, shoulda, coulda, woulda, that whole saying. I just let it happen. I let it go. And I let myself really start shimmying down the road of I'm going to professionally do this. It's going to suck for a while and it's going to be hard and there's going to be a lot of rejection. And there was, there still is. So, it was sort of a silver lining in I don't want to say a shameful way, because I don't think it's fair to put a positive spin on your mother passing away, but it really did change. My life changed after that in more ways than one. And I'm grateful for it. I really am. Maybe it was in some way her strange way of saying, go now and
parting gift to you.
Yeah. Go and do what you need to do and what you've been meant to do. So yeah.
I would venture to guess that as a parent myself, I got 3 little ones. I think for me, all I want to do is have my kids feel like they can go out into the world and feel like my existence helped them launch into who they're supposed to be. You know what I mean? And that the last thing I want them to do is sort of sit and wait on me in any way, right? And so in that respect, I wonder, were you with your mom a lot in that last chapter of her life? Like were you there quite a bit?
Yeah, that's the other thing that hurts a lot, I think, and something that I've spent a lot of time trying to admit to myself, that I wasn't there as much as I should have been. And that a lot of regret and a lot of guilt and a lot of things stem from that. To think that, the last few months, my mom was sitting in a hospital and I just worked a lot.
Yeah.
And I think she understood that. Others didn't, but I think she did. I think she got it. And I also think that I looked at the situation rather logically, where it was like, you had cancer for a very long time. You were going to die, and there was nothing I could do about that, it wouldn't be fair to say that, other people were dealing with things in a right or a wrong way. Everyone deals with those sorts of things in their own way.
Yeah.
And that's how I dealt with it. That was my way of dealing with it. So it really sort of touches me now to know, and I think I'm a little proud of myself that I can admit that to myself finally.
That's a big deal.
In terms of, in relation to that, I haven't written much in the last few years, but there was a song that I did write in 2020 by myself, kind of sitting at home, and this insanity came out of me in 10 minutes, literally. It was like 10 minutes done. And I recorded it, and I sat here for 20 minutes in total silence. And it's called The Last Day of Your Life. And it was a sort of autobiography about exactly that. And it was so visceral to see those words on the page and go, holy crap. Will I ever release it into the universe? I don't know. I don't know if that would be something that people would want to hear or be ready to hear, but also it could, going back to what we were talking about earlier, it could be very healing for someone, and it could be very inspiring for someone to hear that. So I would love to share it, with people. I just think that it's going to definitely be something that I need. It's the most personal song I've ever written.
Right.
For sure.
Right. Yeah. There's some similarities in what you're saying too about, with my dad. He passed away about 6.5 years ago now at 57, pretty young. But he was
my mom was 54. I'm sorry.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah. That's too young for our folks.
It's way too young.
But my dad was a terrible smoker. And by that, I mean, he was a great smoker. He smoked a lot all the time. And so that's really...
He was good at smoking?
He was very good at smoking.
Good.
Sorry
to make light, but yeah.
No, it's honestly, I think that's partly how we get through sometimes, And
100%.
But I definitely was not there a lot for him. I mean, his was a sudden, like didn't wake up one morning, kind of was like, went to bed. He wasn't in a hospital. There was no signs. It was just like,
I'm sorry.
And the weekend that he passed, he was, we were supposed to get together on Friday night. It didn't work out for whatever reason. And then on Saturday, I said, what about today? He said, oh, Barb, my stepmom, she had come down with a cold, probably not good. And the next morning she called saying he was gone. And it was so, that sits with me big time. The other thing is maybe maybe we should write a song together someday. Maybe this is off the podcast, but I remember I picked up so about a year after he passed, my mom said, "Can you come get this old guitar?" It was a piece of garbage guitar. It's not a great guitar, but he said, "Your dad had this kicking around," and I picked it up and I had it in my hands and I put it in the trunk of my guitar and I said to myself out loud, I said, "I wonder if Dad left any songs behind in here." And it just took me down this path of like the songs you left behind, because my dad was a player. He's a bluegrass singer-songwriter, and I just thought that is such a cool thing that I've been chasing for years. The songs that he left behind. I still haven't figured out what that song is, but I think for us as artists, it's always like honoring where we come from, whether it was good or bad in some ways, and trying to keep that presence of mind even today as we do what we do and create the way we create.
Yeah. And, I think some music needs to be written by yourself. And there are some words that you can only say.
Right.
That's also another thing that I've been thinking a lot about, because I've spent the bulk of my time, my songwriting time, like writing with other people.
Right.
And I kind of don't want to write, I think like for whatever reason, like I'm having this strange, it's also the whole Zoom age thing, like when we all moved into the whole like virtual songwriting era. I tried it a couple times. It wasn't for me.
Not the same. Yeah.
It's not even that it's not the same. It's just, I think like when you write as personally as some of us do, it's really hard to convey the emotions that you are trying to convey when you're explaining a situation.
Yeah.
And that's like all I do. It's like the energy of the room and the energy of the chemistry of your songwriting partners. It has to come from a place of physical contact for me. And so I think that's why I've really taken a dive into going back to my roots, so to speak, the whole roots thing of I used to write songs in my bedroom, I'm really trying to do that. It's creatively, I've just been so drained, I think. And I don't know if it's because I don't really want to sit down and write the most depressing thing I've ever written, because I feel like that's where that's going to go. But I'm also trying to find the insightful, the philosophical side of me, so to speak, where you really dig into like the meaning of things, like what's the meaning of this that happened, and thinking about past experiences and trying to dissect them maybe and in a different way, rather than just saying you broke my heart and everything sucks and here's a song about, my ex-boyfriend, like I can't do that anymore. I don't think so. Finding the path has been really difficult for me. Right. Growing into, going into my 40s, and because I'm going into my 40s soon, and it is actually something that you think about. It's something that you think about. Like, do I want to put things out into the world that are a little more my age gap, I guess? Like, and that's not a dig on young people. Although I do scream, "Get off my lawn" a lot to kids, but I also was like, at the Kendrick Lamar show, like not too long ago, like literally screaming out almost every single word to every song, like it's, I just think that music nowadays like comes from such a young place, and not all of it, but a lot of it. And so because attention spans are like this now, right?
It's incredible. Yeah.
It's like this. There's 2-minute songs, and you're like, huh? Like I can't write a 2-minute song.
Right.
I don't even know what that looks like. That's like that's like me just sitting there very emotionally playing the piano without even saying a word,
Right.
But is there a market for that, Right. And so the business person in me, like the little bit of business person that's left is like, how do I navigate this?
Right. On that front, it's interesting. So a couple of things that come to mind is I think, especially in the genre of country music, because that's I'm existing there, but I'm I'm also like singer-songwriter, roots, country, pop, soul guy. Like it's all in there for me, and I feel like that's part of it. But the part of it that I think is funny about this scene, the country scene, sometimes is like it's very rare when you see one writer on a song. And I think what we need to do is give each other permission to just say you can write a song by yourself, and you don't need to have other writers. And the other thing is that we're also artists. Like we have to feel the words we're saying, and so and a writer just goes, oh, that's not hooky. But it's like I don't care about the hooky as much as I care about feeling.
So I have to be careful with my response here because I don't want to offend. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't, but I think like having spent some time in that world, it's not for me. I think that like you can exist in any world that you want to, as long as people will have you. And yeah, like, I mean, look, the formula of that genre particularly is it works. It works for what it works for. And I think that they've been very, lucky to learn the formula and mosey on along kind of through the formula. And artists tend to go with the formula because it's a fun formula. It's super fun. I've done it. And I liked it. But I think like you grow up every once in a while and you have to say, okay, like I want to do this now,
But you can also really lose yourself in that and forget that your voice and your thoughts and your story matters. And if you don't go there too, then you end up becoming an older person without really having said your own thing.
Yeah. And you know what? It's a beautiful thing. I actually, I think like my most favorite part about the last few years was watching some of my best friends grow in that formula. And, I try, like, as I'm sure most people know, I'm a very opinionated person. I've grown up a lot though, in the last few years, like a hard look in the mirror was really necessary. And I did it. And I grew up and I found myself, enjoying watching the rides of others, like Kelly Prescott getting to her place and Andrew finally, for some reason, why it took this long, I don't even want to talk about it, finally winning a CCMA when he should have won it, 7 years ago. Like, it's just like, it's been really great to see these people, really sort of like find their way. And it also is a bit of an eye opener because you're like, okay, that's not for me, like, and that's okay. It's okay to say that, where I'm going to land, I don't know, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to write with those people. It doesn't mean that I don't want to contribute to the amazing things that are happening in their career. Cause there's a lot of really brilliant up and coming country artists who deserve the chance. And I think they also should continue to remain themselves and not get maybe lost in that formula. Yep. But it's hard because like you want to enjoy it.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the crap out of it. It was amazing to have people tell you that you're amazing. It's amazing, it's great to tell you. It's such a good feeling. You hear it, right? You're like, oh, you're so good, and it's like, oh my God, I am, right?
But the problem is. Yeah, the problem is when your value of you is reliant on the acceptance, the charts, the airplay, the whatever. Our value sometimes gets stuck on that, and I think that the risk for any like I'm 42, I signed a record deal relatively late in life to MDM, and I think for me, like I was pretty solid in my foundation of who I am and who I was at the time and who I'm and again even more refined as each year goes by of like. I'm not going to do that. That's not me. But there are 20-year-olds getting into the scene that get eaten up and consumed by it because they think they're supposed to measure up to whatever the direction of the scene is.
They don't have the luxury of knowing who they are yet. Right. I think is the issue. But that's growing up. That's life. That's like I didn't know who I was at 20. Who did? Totally. Who does? Like I think it's very rare. Like maybe Billie Eilish does. But that's because has the most incredible people around her, But like, I think like just nowadays, it's hard to. It's not even just in country, but I think that the solitude of the last 3 years has actually been a positive thing for me, even though it was extremely dark, very dark. It's been good because it forced me to sit, and it forced me to like, I'm trying to find the right word, just to sit, I guess, just to sit with myself and think about what I want and out of this career. You don't really get it. I don't think that anyone really knows how it feels to be like here and then here overnight, And it's partially my fault, I think. It is partially my fault because I didn't continue to create and I didn't continue to work. And I stopped. I just stopped. I was like, okay, do I even want to do this anymore?
Right.
But I do. I do want to still do this. I just want to find a different way to do it. And the limbo is the hardest part, I think.
Right.
For sure.
Well, good on you for when you say it was a really dark time, like that could be a time when a life could really go off the rails or your life could go into, I guess
it did.
You're still here. You're still to me, from my perspective today, you're here living, breathing, fighting for the next thing, the next season, the next chapter, whatever's coming up in your life. And I think, I've mentioned this before in the podcast, and I had my friend Rob Nash as a guest, and I remember I toured with him for a while, and he would often say, like, if you're going through hell, don't stay there. Somebody on the other side needs your story. And when I listen to your music, I feel like you're sharing those pieces of, like, not every song, but a lot of it is pretty, like, I would say comes from a broken-heartedness feeling. I mean, that's the vibe I get. And I feel like what you're doing is you're sharing that fire you've been through. Again, this is through the fire. But I feel like there's so much beauty in that when we can share our brokenness with other people and inspire that way, because somebody on the other side does need your story. And I think right now when you're talking about the season you've been through, I feel like, again, maybe this is just a bad analogy, but you're like a about to come out of a cocoon in some way, and again, no pressure to do anything, but I feel like there's this beautiful
stop pressuring
beauty
me
in that. Yeah. So when's the next single?
Okay, Ryan Seacrest.
No, but whatever that looks like.
I don't know what it looks like. That's the craziest thing. Is it's like I have conversations with my manager. And we've, check in with each other every once in a while. And the beautiful part about all of it is that he has never once been like, you have to do this.
Right. Yeah.
And I actually remember telling him a little while back, and I said, maybe I do need you to kick my ass a little bit or I won't, but he still, it's just such a relief to not feel that, because I feel like if I did, then I would I would have put out a shitty record by now.
Right. Yeah.
That didn't mean anything. It didn't, here you go, here's the second record. It's also going to, I've only made one record.
Right.
And maybe I'm going to be one of those people who only puts out a record every 9 years. Maybe, no, that's not the case, but you know what I mean? I don't want to reference Adele, but that's what she does. And rushing it can be bad sometimes.
Totally.
You end up with really crap music. And if I don't want to go out on stage too and play songs that I don't care about.
Absolutely. I hear you for sure.
So also I'm on drugs now, which is weird. That's another thing.
Now, when you say that, you're meaning medication.
Yes, medication. I avoided that shit for 20 years. I said no several times. I did not believe in it. It was like, I'm okay. I'm fine. I can deal with it on my own. And for the most part, I could until I couldn't.
That's interesting. This has come up in my home here actually recently.
Yeah.
About me. For me, it's ADHD.
No shame.
And it's never been shame. I think I literally was talking to my wife yesterday about this and saying how, for me, I feel like there's nothing wrong. How could I need something? And for her, she's like, yes, but what if you did and you see some light on the other side? It's like, I suppose so, right? And that I that maybe I'm not even recognizing I'm in some sort of cloud of something, you know?
You kind of don't. That's the thing. I mean, I did because I've dealt with some form of like depression since I was like 13. So
Right.
like when things are bad, they're bad. But when you throw doomsday anxiety on top of that, along with like an idle career and, you know, just like nothingness and not wanting to get out of bed in the morning for 2 years, it's like something's got to give, you know? And I think that was one of the best decisions I've probably ever made for myself. It really, it changed everything.
So is this medication in the last year, 2 years?
6 months I've been on
6
it.
months,
And
okay.
I'm a different person. It's the craziest thing. Like the clarity, I think, is the most
interesting
sort of prominent revelation. Like being able to think clearly, not being angry all the time, you know, like actually going to sleep at night. Like it's just there's such a stigma still. There is. And I'm sure you've had this conversation with some of your other guests about like the stigma around mental health. And it's like, there is no stigma. If there's anything, every single person in the last 3 years was depressed in some way, shape, or form, because that's what the pandemic did to us. So there shouldn't be a stigma anymore, because the person who blamed others for those weird things that they were feeling, like, you're fine, just go for a run, you know, go for a coffee, you know, like get out of the house. It's like, you're going to be okay. It's like, no, there's literally, you can't, it doesn't work like that, you know,
right.
Like depression and anxiety and those things don't work like that. You're hardwired to feel that way.
Well, and I think the same thing with like mental health. Like it is something that we are all a part of, whether we know it or not. And I think about this like physicality, for instance. Like if we say we have to maintain a certain amount of physical fitness in order to grow old and be somewhat healthy. And same thing with our minds. Like I think everybody, the problem with it for me is like people go, oh, mental health. They go, oh, that's that person. But it's like, no, we all have to consider the health of our minds.
It's just as important. Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, like the pandemic destroyed people in so many ways. It also, you know, helped people as well. I think like really figure out that they needed help. I'm one of those people, you know, like it's very much so like it's a double-edged sword for sure, where it was like we sat in this like pool of nothingness for a while, and the uncertainty of the future and what you know, the fear and like all of those things, like, you know, they get thrown into a pot and they boil and then they boil over, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're like, oh crap, I need to do something about this. So I really actually hope that it helped people. Like it helped me for sure. It may have broken some bridges along the way, and that's okay. You know, like that's fine with me. I think like I became very non-responsive to people, and, you know, very shut in. And did nothing but spend time with my boyfriend and my cats. And and then I got a job. I got a job at a pet store, and it changed my life. It really, really did, having a purpose.
Is this your first job, like outside of the music industry in the last
in a
10
long
years?
time?
Yeah.
Long time. Yeah. And you know what? I friggin' love it. I get to hang out with dogs all day. It's the best. And
there's so much therapy in that.
I'm still going to do it. There is. It really is. And you know what? I'm still going to do it. I don't even care. Like, even if, like, you know, next week they were like, oh my God, like, you know, Jason Isbell wants you to open for him on his American tour, I would be like, okay, can I go back to my job after the tour is done? Because like, it's actually very soothing, and it's very like calming for me to have a purpose. I have a purpose again. And my musical purpose exists still, but it's going to be slow growing, and it's going to take some time to get back into it. And once it does, I'm sure that everyone always jokes with me, anyone that I've spoken to, they're like, when you finally write something, you're going to write like the best thing you've ever written in your life. And I'm like, I'm also probably going to write the most depressing thing I've ever written in my life. But when it happens, I hope that it comes out in droves. I really do. Because I'm excited about it.
I love a good depressing song, to be honest. Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea to put together a 12-song record of depressing songs, but we'll see.
No, but do you know what I think it is? What I think for me, I hear that and I go, somebody is letting something go right now, or like letting somebody in the most like intimate spaces of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening. And when maybe that's why I enjoy those melancholic songs so much, because that take you down that road, because I feel like there's this element of like, I'm seeing something in the artist that's sharing that, and it's pretty beautiful.
Yeah. That's why I'm really excited for Paramore's new record. I think it's going to be angrier than sad, but I'm excited.
Okay, so I got a sense of where you're going, and this is not necessarily that we have to kind of dive too deep into this, but what are you looking forward to, like, from here? Like, what's your is it just like bedtime tonight, or like is it tomorrow? Is it next year? Is it?
That's a good question. What am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to breathing, man. I'm looking forward to like, I have this, I don't want to say new outlook on life, because I don't think that that's correct. But I have a bit more of a sense of self.
Well, you said clarity a while ago too.
Yeah, I'm open-minded to the future now, I think. And I mean, I don't want to die, so that's good.
That's good.
That's a good start. And I think,
was there a time when you were in that place? Yeah.
Oh God, so many times over the years. Yeah. And that's the cloud, man. That's the dark cloud that people don't realize. People look at me and, think that I'm this happy, cheery, strong, wonderful person. But at the end of the day, I'm not, when the lights go out and you're by yourself and you start thinking about things, and it's not, it's normal. We normalize it, I think, we being depressed people, but it's really just like a routine thing. Every once in a while it creeps into your head. But hopefully people have things to look forward to, which I do. And I'm excited about like what's going to come out musically. I'm excited about like, I like my job, and, I'm excited about like, things like relationships improving, and I'm excited for people. I'm so excited for the success of the coming success of people that I love. And it's just such a really wonderful thing to see people coming out of this, hanging storm, this shit storm of sadness over the last few years. And the news and the things and everybody, like, it's too much, there's too much negativity. So I'm excited about the positive things. I'm gonna enjoy whatever's to come and let it happen the way that it's supposed to happen, because we don't have control over too much, but we have control over ourselves.
I liked your first answer best when you said, I'm looking forward to breathing. I think that
too.
I think that was honestly, no, it's okay. We'll edit all that other stuff out. No, I'm just kidding. No,
don't do that.
No. I think that sometimes when people ask the question, what are you looking forward to? I think oftentimes people go so far in thinking like it has to be this and this. And I love the beauty of just like, I'm happy to be here,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to whatever sort of the next moment provides and brings, and that I can actually be present in. I think there's so much beauty in that it doesn't, and maybe the encouragement to the listener is like, maybe you don't have to have a big 10-year plan. Maybe it's just like, just be grateful. We woke up and we have another day and the sun is shining. And you know what I mean? I think it's that perspective that is so healthy, that that we don't have to have that pressure of like, what's the 5-year plan? I think that's scary for some people, you know?
What's the 1 week plan? I don't even know what I'm doing next week. Like,
I know there's laundry. I know gotta make some meals.
I'm going to play video games, and I'm going to hang out with my cats, and I'm going to drink coffee, and I'm going to, you know, like just enjoy.
Which is all beautiful.
Like
all beautiful.
Just friggin' enjoy it, man. Like, I mean, I'm not 100%, and I don't know if I ever will be. But I know that right now I'm a comfortable 90, you know, and I'm
that
fine
sounds like
with
a good
that.
place to be. Sounds like a good place to be,
90%. The other 10 are just floating in the void somewhere.
I would guess that I don't know of anybody who's living in 100, to be honest. If you do, I mean, that's another maybe.
Wondering who.
Yeah, I don't know.
Tom Hanks.
But I'm honestly, I'm so grateful that you came here and just kind of dived in a little bit with me on some of this. And this is a conversation I've been thinking about for a long
but why
time.
Though? What makes me like what? Why?
I just have so much admiration for your music, and again, because I hear the music and I go, there's something there that I feel a connection to in some ways. I mean, your music unifies people, right? And it brings people together, and you let people inside when you do that, and when you write from the place that you do. And I'm grateful for that. And I think for me, as a fan, just as a musical fan, that's a big reason why I wanted to connect with you and just get to know you. I think that's, you know, from the silence. I remember being at your show in London and being like, I should go talk to her.
Why didn't you come say hi?
Well, you were like, I'm running away. I'm going to go hide with my cats. I don't even know if you stuck around, to be honest. I think it was kind of like, I think you literally disappeared off into the night like Batman.
Yeah.
So
I am the Batman when it comes to shows. Like, it's very, even like, it's very rare for me to like, you know, hang out. I'm not a big like go out into the crowd person. Like, I go to the merch table. That's about it. But like, I do my work. I go home.
So we've never actually met face to face apart from this.
No, we haven't.
So let's make sure that happens in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I really hope that it does, dude. Like, you know, I have to say, and since you're dishing out compliments, you have such an outstanding voice in more ways than one. I just want you to know that, and your representation of your person and of your music and of your voice is like very commanding. Oh, just so you know.
That's can we get a soundbite of that and just hang on to that, Sarah?
No, seriously, dude, you're super talented. So just please keep doing what you're doing as well, because we need more people in the world and in the business, so to speak, like you. So,
well, I will echo that right back at you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica Mitchell, for being here. As I always say, it takes a village to run things here at Through the Fire, and I want to thank my village, executive producer Sarah Burke, administrators Lori Brown and Alan Greyeyes, video and audio design by Chris Gaudry and his team at 44 Films, Feisty Creative for their design work, social media support by Johnson Design Company, and last but far from least, I want to thank our technical producers, Matt Kundle and Evan Serminski from the Sound Off Media Company. I look forward to sharing more great conversations just like this one on the next Through the Fire. You see the light.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.